Hi, Sherry here. My lessons have just ended, but I won't go home like all the others. I'm staying. I still have to clean the entire school. Yep, I'm working as a cleaner and I often stay overnight in the school prep room as I don't have time to do my homework. That's all because my family is starving and if I stop working, we won't be able to afford even some food. Oh no, here comes the guard who's always mocking me and thinks he's my main boss. I'd better go clean the changing room. I've got loads of work and all I want is to meet folks, go to the cinema or to a cafe with them, but I just cannot afford this. We have a huge utility debt and if we don't pay soon we'll be kicked out to the streets. You can imagine I cannot waste money on my entertainment. Just why are you sitting here? I heard. This guard had found me after all. He said he'd never seen such an idler and ordered me to wash behind the lockers. And if I didn't do this, he'd complain to the principal and I'd be kicked out. Oh no, not this. I'll clean everything. Indeed, there was so much dust behind the lockers. Seems it wasn't cleaned since the foundation of the school. Wait, and what's this? It seemed there was some kind of door in the wall. I pressed there and it opened. Oh, wow. I walked there cautiously. What I saw astonished me. Seems it's a bunker for an air or a nuclear attack. Everything is so rusty and dirty. Then an old radio caught my eye. Wow, this kind of thing you can only see in a museum. I turned the wheel, pressed some buttons on it, but the radio never worked. Maybe its battery had died or some chip got covered with dust, which was not surprising at all. It's so dirty in here. I hope everyone had forgotten about this room long ago. They'd not make me clean it. I rushed to leave and moved the lockers back into place. Hey, and where is my bucket and broom? Maybe that guard had hidden them? Well, all right then. No equipment, no clean floors. I'm going home. I saw a guard on my way out, but it was another one. I'd never seen him before. Maybe the other one felt sick and this one stepped in? I came home exhausted and starving, dreaming about having dinner. My keys never wanted to open the lock. Oh, come on, Sherry. Suddenly, Mom came out shouting what I needed here. Mom, are you okay? But she seemed not to mention and kept on shouting, calling me a thief and threatening to call the police. And then she just closed the door right in front of me. Hey, what's happening here? I didn't dare to knock on the door. Something was obviously wrong. Mom looked strangely younger, way younger than usual. And the facade of the house was newer too. Wait, I need to think it over. I stepped aside and suddenly saw my parents going out. Dad looked younger too. And who's this girl they have with them? I looked closer and shuddered. It was me, but 10 years or so younger. Stop. Is this the past? I frantically recalled all previous events. Everything was as usual. Lessons, then washing the floors, then the secret room. The room, of course. After visiting it, I found myself in another reality. Could it be that old radio brought me 10 years back? Seems to return to my time. I need to go back to that room. And then it dawned onto me. What if I changed some events here to change the life after in my true reality? Sounds like a plan. Our family's troubles started approximately this time, when I was around 10. Dad was fired from a big company where he was working as an economist. Later he used to tell he was framed by some Noel Mendler. Using semi-legal schemes, this Mendler withdrew a huge sum of money from the company's accounts and then faked some documents, proving my dad was the one who did this. All our accounts were arrested and Dad was prohibited to work as an economist from then on. Since then we are poor, but now I'll change it. I just need that company to employ me. Luckily they needed a cleaner, so I started working immediately. I needed to keep closer to that Mendler. Maybe I'd find something. But no such luck. He was behaving absolutely normally, worked on his computer and never did anything illegal. I'd kept near him the whole day and once I noticed he printed some document, looked at it for a long time, then tore it and threw it into the bin. Here is my hint. I grabbed the bin immediately and ran away. I need to put those pieces together and understand what was this he wanted to get rid of. It was some kind of bill. Oh no, it was just his electricity bill. I had little time left, so I needed to risk. After work, when everyone'd gone home, I studied Mendler's computer. There must have been hints. Then I heard from behind my back, "What are you doing here?" I turned around. "Dad! Oh, wait, I mean Mr. Evans. You've misunderstood me. Come closer. I must confess something. In reality, I'm Emma Anderson, an FBI agent. Our data say Noel Mendler is a big fraud, and he's preparing to withdraw a huge sum of money from this company's accounts and transfer it to a criminal group, and then he'll frame someone who works here. You must help me to find the proof, but it's all top secret. No one must know." Dad looked at me suspiciously. I wish he believed. And then he claimed Noel was holding the board of directors the next day, which he never did before. "Oh no! It means our time is really short, Mr. Evans. Let's get down to work." But just as we came to the computer, a guard entered the room and asked us to leave. He was closing the building for the night. On our way, I made a plan. Tomorrow morning, I come to the office earlier than everyone and plant a spy program on Noel's computer. You'll be able to search his files from your working place. Your task is to find the proof and show it during the director's meeting. I'll handle Noel myself. He'll be off work. Good the electricity bill had his home address in it. Near our house, Dad suddenly asked how did I know where he lived. I embarrassed, but thought it out quickly. I'm an FBI agent after all, Mr. Evans. At night it was all prepared. An opened valve and a broken thread on the main water pipe would have Mendler occupied for the entire day. And indeed, he called the office in the morning and said he had an emergency. Now it was Dad's turn to act. He worked hard until the very evening. "Come on, hurry up! The meeting starts in a minute now!" Suddenly he jumped up and ran into the meeting room with a load of papers. Soon I heard loud applause from the meeting room. "Yes, seems it worked!" The doors opened. The CEO was shaking Dad's hand, promising to promote him, and then he called the police to Mendler's house. I walked to school with my mind at peace. I got to the changing room without anyone noticing me and entered the secret room again. Then I heard the voice of that guard. "Oh yes, it worked." Seeing me, he blushed and said the car was waiting me already. What? And indeed, there was a posh SUV with a driver near the school. Wow, then my life must have changed dramatically. We came to a gorgeous mansion. Can it be we live here now? I'm dying to see my parents. I've missed them so much. Mom, Dad, where are you? Let's go for a walk. The weather is great. Then Aunt Sarah came to me. She looked at me perplexedly and asked what had happened to me today, because my parents went missing 5 years ago, right after Noel Mendler was released from jail. What? Sam, start the car! I need to return to school immediately! Did you like the video? Subscribe and give us a like. Support the channel. Thanks.
I followed my lover Ethan to the locker room, and he had been stuck there for an hour now. I peeked inside cautiously, but there was no one in the locker room. And then I saw Ethan come out of the locker. With a strange smile, he headed for the exit. I barely managed to hide behind a pillar, and he didn't notice me. And when he was out of sight, I went into the locker room. I examined his locker with interest. There was nothing special. What was Ethan doing here then? Then I noticed red handprints on the back wall. Was that blood? I got into the locker to examine them. In a panic, I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. I beat on it with my fists. I would suffocate here. I leaned against the back of the locker to catch my breath. And suddenly, I felt that I was falling somewhere. No! But let me tell you how it all started. 2 months ago, I was brought to a new orphanage. The last one was closed due to the emergency condition of the building. I wasn't too upset. It was lousy. I was a mousy girl with no friends, and I barely remembered my parents. They died in a car accident when I was 4. I was playing at home with my favorite doll when a woman from custody came for me. And I had to spend 13 years in this terrible orphanage. So I didn't expect anything good from the new orphanage. But suddenly, I found a kindred spirit there, Kate. We were roommates. She lost her parents to the accident too, and it brought us closer together. Kate was kind and brave. She often protected me from the jokes of the other guys. And she also noticed that I liked Ethan, everyone's favorite in the orphanage. This guy studied hard and even helped out in the library. He was a handsome man, and there was something mysterious about him. Yes, I fell madly in love with him. But I was afraid that he would reject me, so I watched him from afar. Kate also tried to dissuade me from that, saying that it was not safe to go around the orphanage alone. She said there was a legend in the orphanage. Every year, a girl disappeared in it. But I didn't believe it, and I kept watching Ethan. I began to notice something strange. He could stay in the locker room for hours. And when he went back to his room, he kept looking around, like he was hiding something. I wanted to tell Kate about it at dinner, but for some reason, she didn't come. I began to look for her in the orphanage, but she seemed to have disappeared. Maybe she was in the yard. I was on my way there when I saw Ethan sneaking into the locker room again. Curiosity got the better of me and I decided to follow him. So, do you remember how I fell into the locker? Because of my curiosity, I ended up here in Ethan's secret hideout. Rubbing my bruised knee, I stood up and groped for the light switch. The light came on and I saw a small room with one bed, a floor lamp and curtains on the wall without a window. Oddly enough, the bed was littered with a mountain of teddy bears. Ethan was past that age. Why did he need toys? Then I noticed someone's pass to the library on the floor. I stepped closer and flinched. The pass was Kate's, and there was blood on it. I remembered the red prints in the locker and was horrified. God. What had Ethan done to Kate? I needed to get out of here. But then I heard footsteps and the creak of a locker door. Ethan was back. Not knowing where to go, I quickly turned off the light and ran to the curtain. Just as I was hiding, Ethan came into the room. He turned on the floor lamp and began to walk slowly around the room. I wish he hadn't noticed me. Then I saw a streak of light falling on my feet. Damn, the curtain was too short. I hoped Ethan wouldn't find me. But suddenly I heard him coming closer. I couldn't move in horror. But at the last moment, Ethan swerved off somewhere. Just as I let out my breath, the curtain was yanked back, and Ethan was staring at me, angry. "What are you doing here?" he hissed angrily. His eyes were wild. I started babbling about trying to find my books, but Ethan cut me off. He shouted that he didn't like being lied to and pulled the scotch tape from behind his back. "I need to teach you to mind your own business," he whispered. My stomach turned cold. He was crazy? Where did that cute guy I fell in love with go? I started for the door, but Ethan blocked my way. What should I do? I looked around. There was a bulky floor lamp nearby. This would delay him. With all my strength, I pushed it against Ethan and ran out of the room. Ethan quickly came to his senses and ran after me. I raced away from him through the winding corridors. It looked like I was going to shake him off, but Ethan kept up. As I ran, I turned around and suddenly bumped into someone. The principal of the orphanage. I was saved. He started to tell me off about running around the halls, but I cut him off. "It's Ethan. He's crazy and he's chasing me." However, the principal smiled and said that I was making it up. Ethan was the most obedient child he had ever had at the orphanage. He definitely didn't care about running around the halls. No, you don't understand. I told the principal about the bloodstained prints in Ethan's locker and Kate's bath, but he wouldn't listen to me. He told me to go back to my room quickly. "But sir," I began, but the principal rudely interrupted me, saying that there was a severe penalty for libel here. It was useless to argue. So I trudged into the room. I was hoping to see Kate there, but she wasn't there all night long. Her bloodstained past was in front of my eyes. Sweet Kate, she was the only one who had been kind to me. I shuddered to think what Ethan had done to her. The next day, she didn't show up, and rumors spread around the shelter that no one had seen Kate since yesterday. Only I knew what had really happened to her. I had to stop that crazy Ethan. No one else would be harmed by his hands, but I needed hard evidence. I decided to go back to the locker room for her pass. I need to show it to the principal. That way, he would believe Ethan was responsible for Kate's disappearance and turn him into the police. But the locker was closed. I tried to crack it with a wire and I kicked it, but it was useless. I had to look for other evidence to expose Ethan. And then I remembered the legend of the missing girls. That same evening, I decided to dig into the archives of the orphanage and learn something terrible. It turned out that apart from Kate, 3 girls had disappeared in the past 3 years. I also decided to look at Ethan's personal file. It turned out that the first girl disappeared just the year he arrived at the orphanage. Goosebumps ran down my skin. And when I came out of the archive, I noticed that someone was watching me from behind a curtain. It was Ethan. I barely managed to blend into the crowd so I wouldn't get caught. It looked like Ethan wanted to rub me out as the witness. It was uneasy, but I knew I couldn't give up. I needed direct evidence that he was responsible for the missing children. So the next morning, I crept cautiously into the room where Ethan lived. He and his neighbor were supposed to be on duty, but the thought of Ethan catching me made my blood run cold. I had already rummaged through all the cabinets in his room when suddenly I found library passes right in the bedside table. They had the names of the missing people on them, and even Kate's. I almost screamed in horror. There was no doubt that Ethan was guilty. I quickly grabbed the passes and ran to the principal. My heart was pounding. I had to hurry. I wasn't far from the principal's office when I noticed Ethan leading a girl toward the locker room. A new victim? I decided to take him red-handed and record everything on video, so he definitely would not get out of it. I walked at their heels. They went into the locker and the door slammed shut. I tiptoed over to the locker with my phone and opened the door. I was already leaning against the narrow crack in the secret room, but then the hinges creaked treacherously. Ethan froze and listened, but after a second, he continued to chat pleasantly with the student. I almost got caught. But then my phone vibrated. I got a text message with some spam. Heck. Ethan heard that, and he came straight to me. I shot out of the locker room and ran to the principal. Ethan chased after me and grabbed my arm at the office. With difficulty, I managed to escape, opened the door, and ran inside. Thank God, Ethan was left outside. I started talking about the missing girls in Ethan's locker. To prove my point, I pulled a stack of passes out of my pocket and showed the principal the video I'd just taken on my phone. He was about to believe me. But at that moment, there was a knock on the door. Ethan came into the office. I staggered to the side in surprise, and he smiled at me as if nothing had happened. Ethan said that he had heard what I had said about him, and he explained that he was only helping the girls catch up on literature. That's what the secret room was made for. The girls themselves did not disappear anywhere. They were simply taken to new families. But what about the blood in the locker? I asked. Dumbfounded, Ethan grinned and said it was red gouache for a library poster. This was nonsense. Ethan made it up. I started screaming that Ethan was a liar and a psycho. The principal and Ethan looked at each other and took my arms. I struggled. They were clearly in cahoots with each other. I never had such a tantrum. I started choking and passed out. I came to myself in a strange place. People were wandering around in the same clothes. The doctor took my hand and told me that I was having paranoid attacks and needed treatment. What? I was healthy. I pulled away from his hand and tried to run away, but I was quickly pinned down and injected with something. I woke up in a straitjacket. Apparently, I ended up in a mental hospital. I was drugged, and after a couple of days, it seemed to me that I had gone too far with surveillance. Ethan could really help these girls. And everyone thought he was a great guy. A week later, I was on the mend. They even promised to let me go soon if I behaved as well. And then one day, I saw a familiar silhouette in the corridor. Ethan, he was wearing a straitjacket, and under his arm was a teddy bear, one of the ones I saw in the secret room. I was paralyzed. Ethan smiled and came over to me and whispered, "You're right. I did this to Kate and the others. Now guess who's next?"